Let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. Consistently, we've been trying to interrogate certain challenges in our country. This Sunday, we are going to leave politics aside. We are going to look at our national survival. And you still know why I'm saying our national survival. Remember about 6 years ago, we did a story on the challenge of drugs in Kano State. And one of our respondents said then that if we did not tackle that problem, after the drugs have destroyed the youth, it will go to the upper class, if not our institutions, including our security institutions. Now, of late, you read stories, NDLEA has arrested this person, NDLEA has seized that. The top of the story today is the connection of a gentleman in a drug deal, a senior police officer, raising more fear that something dangerous could be in the offing if we left the situation to fester. And so this afternoon, I'm having a conversation with Femi Babafemi. Femi Babafemi, of course, is the face of NDLEA. He's the director, media and advocacy. By the way, what is NDLEA? National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, just in case you don't know the acronym. Femi, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Femi, there is a fear I have personally as I read stories of the arrests, the seizures being made by the NDLEA, and the kind of drugs that are being mentioned. Does NDLEA feel that Nigeria has become an unguarded, viable space for drug dealers?
Well, as much as we want to be realistic and admit that there is a drug problem in our country, which on its own is not restricted or limited to Nigeria, it's a global challenge. I would not want to agree with your conclusion that the space is unguided, because if it's unguided, you just, in your introduction, you did mention about what has been going on or what the agency, the NDLEA, has been doing. So if there are concerted efforts to tackle the challenge, then it means that the space can be unguided. What we have in Nigeria as of today, it's a strong indication and confirmation of the fact that there is a war going on against the menace of drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking. And there is substantial progress being made. If I have to take you back to the statistics of the work of the agency in 2021 alone, that will probably give you a better picture of what the situation is and what has been done. Now, let me take you back a little to 2018, when there was a national drug survey on the issue of drugs in Nigeria. That survey, the result of that survey shows that about 14.3 million Nigerians had abused drugs in the previous year, giving that's about 14.4% prevalence rate. And that on its own is 3 times the global prevalence average, and no nation would accept that. And that obviously must have been responsible for why President Muhammad Buhari set up the Presidential Advisory Committee for the Elimination of Drug Abuse then in 2018, and coincidentally that body was the current chairman, chief executive of the NDLEA, was appointed as the chairman of that body, Paseda, and they worked tirelessly. At the end of the day, they were able to come up with recommendations, and somehow the president also found him fit to go ahead and held the NDLEA as chairman, chief executive. And I'll tell you that from the very moment he stepped his feet into these premises, that's January 18, 2021, the entire war has changed totally. And I give you, in 12 months, that is January to December 2021, the agency was able to make 12,306 arrests of offenders, about 1,400 persons prosecuted and sent to jail, about 1,502 other persons still facing prosecution. Beyond that, again, this is very key and important, over 3.4 million kilograms of assorted illicit drugs mopped up from our streets, from our communities, from different entry and exit points. And in addition, you have about 8,000 persons, drug users, cancelled and rehabilitated. All of this put together shows that our space is not unguarded. So it's yeah, we admit that, there is a major problem, but then substantial, we've been facing that and doing quite a lot. And as a result, I will also tell you from our latest findings, through all of the activities of the agency, what we call the new maxim of the new operational maxim of the agency, offensive action. Through that, we've been able to cut access and availability of these drugs, whether opioids or the cocaine, heroin, or even the most commonly abused, that is cannabis. Cannabis alone takes about 10.6 million persons. That is Nigerians abusing cannabis alone. And that's why you would have also seen, if the space had been left unguarded, you wouldn't have noticed the kind of strong resistance the NDLEA put up, especially statements from the chairman at different fora saying that not in Nigeria of today would we allow cannabis to be legalized. There was serious move by a number of interests to push that through, but then we put up a strong resistance, and today that is almost fizzling out. So with that, I think it's well guided. That I can assure you.
But Femi, that is why we were speaking.
Yeah.
You mentioned a number of drug challenges. Have you traced, has NDLEA been able to trace the sources of these drugs? Because I do not know anywhere if these drugs are made in Nigeria. If they are not made in Nigeria, are you tracing this?
Definitely. When you talk of certain drugs like cocaine, we know definitely where they come from. South America, Brazil precisely. Those places, we'll call them the source countries where those ones come from. When you also talk of certain pharmaceutical opioids, we also know where some of those things come from, like tramadol, Swinol and all, diazepam, all of this. Then codeine, you also know that a lot of these come from the axis of India, Pakistan. Then the most commonly abused, which is grown and cultivated locally here, cannabis. We also we can also tell you that it's grown and cultivated mostly in state A, B, without necessarily mentioning specific state, but then we know which state has the highest farms, and I'll tell you that we're not taking that lightly, because just last week or thereabout, men moved into the forest, which covers about 5 local governments in a particular state, to destroy 255 hectares. That is huge. 255 hectares. If they had been allowed, I'm not talking of acres, hectares. If they had been allowed to harvest that, you can imagine what that would have thrown to our society. But then, just at the point of harvesting, our men moved in and destroyed all of that. So it shows you that we are aware of where some of these things come from, and we go to the source to block them. Because for us, when there's a flood, I keep saying this, you don't go to where the water slips to be mopping it. No, you go to the source first to block the source. Then you can now go out and be mopping where the flood has spread to. That way, and that's exactly what the operational strategy of the agency, that's exactly what we're doing at the moment, trying as much as possible to block, and that's why you would have seen that at our various land borders, sea ports, and the airports, it's been pretty difficult for them to bring in or even take out these drugs. And that's why you would have noticed that for quite some time, I'll tell you, I mean, especially since January 2021, you wouldn't have heard of any Nigerian arrested at any airport abroad for drug trafficking. If anyone was arrested, that person did not start the journey from Nigeria. So that shows you that it's been pretty difficult for them to move the drugs from, use Nigeria as transit point.
Now, cannabis cultivated. This also used to be a kind of challenge to some Latin American countries, even the Pakistan, even Afghanistan. One of the strategies their governments used, recommended to them by both the United Nations and US government, was to provide alternative crops that will yield as much dividend. Is NDLEA thinking along that line?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have all the options on our table, but first we're trying to cripple the cartels behind all of this, because each of these drugs have cartels operating them. So we have to first of all cripple them, decapitate them, and make sure that they cannot really function effectively again. But then we also know that I'm also aware that the chairman, chief executive of the agency, Jaramara, is working on all fronts to see how we can work with the governors, the state governors, where some of these things are grown, to see how these people can be empowered to do some other things. You know, you consider cocoa, you consider cassava, you consider even yam. No, a lot of things, a lot of options. That discussion is ongoing until we get to a comfortable point where we can say, okay, we can do this. But for now, the focus primarily is to make sure that we dismantle the cartels and make sure that these things don't find their way to our communities, to our streets, not to even talk of getting them to other places. So that we're doing. Don't also forget, I also want to tell you that this thing, what we have, some of them that you have in the country also are being imported from Canada. And because they found it difficult to come in through our airport or seaport with some of these things, because we keep intercepting them. They even pack them inside. They buy Tokumbo vehicles, that's used vehicles, pack them into it all the way from Canada, but then we still intercept them. So we don't allow them to come in. Now what they do is they ship these things to a neighboring country, like Ghana, like Benin Republic, Cotonou, where they try to ferry them through the waterways into the country, and we're also giving them a tough time there through the waterways, the inner water paths. So we're giving them, and recently, just I think towards the end of last year, quite substantial portions of those that were brought in from Ghana were intercepted at the Eco-Atlantic beach, where they were being moved in trucks to Pate area of Lagos for distribution to other parts of the country. Definitely, we have all the options on that.
You know that these drug dealers do not just walk in and give your men a handshake and pass, or give them a pat on the back and say, please, I won't do it again. All over the world, they deal in arms. What level of insecurity, what level of challenge are your men facing from these desperate drug dealers?
Yeah, when you talk of the cartels operating the drug business globally, they are defiant, they are dangerous, and deadly. And in response to that, as far as the Nigerian context is concerned, the NDLEA, under the leadership of General Mawa, has really been strengthened to be able to respond to this challenge. And that's why you find a new elite corps within the agency called the Strike Force, that particular unit within the agency is being grown, developed, empowered, and well trained in handling of sophisticated arms, weapons, so as to be able to give our regular officers cover in difficult terrains, in major operations. And as I speak with you, we have hundreds of them in training at the Nigerian Army School of Infantry in Jaji, and they will be graduating from next week, thereabout. So, well, all of these, they are being empowered strategically to respond to this kind of things, because we know that, just recently, just about last weekend, thereabout, we had a major challenge in Lagos, in the party area of Lagos, where our men came under heavy attacks from hoodlums and miscreants hired and deployed by drug barons in that particular area, because party area of Lagos Island is notorious as a major drug hub. And our men moved in there, and lo and behold, we actually have 3 major drug kingpins marked for arrest that day, because we have sufficient information that they were on ground and their warehouses are filled, and so we needed to move in to make sure that we take them out and also evacuate those drugs. And we're just done with one operation with the arrest of Alaja Sherifat Lawa and some of her people, about 6 others, as well as the evacuation of the drugs in her warehouse, when suddenly the boys came out from all directions, firing gunshots, throwing stones, bottles, wielding machetes and cudgels, pursuing and chasing our men. But then, because our men have been well trained to respond tactically to such challenge, they at that point had to, because of the peculiarity of the area, were clustered. So we didn't want a situation that would lead to fatality, so our men had to beat a retreat and tactically fired gunshots in safer directions that would allow them to live safely without also hurting people. And that's what you had happened last week. If not for that, if they had stayed back to want to effect the arrest of the others, maybe it could have been a worse situation, a different situation. But then we thank God that our men took the best decision in that particular situation. So I cited that to confirm or to buttress your point that, yeah, we're dealing with definitely, but we're responding. So we cannot. What we have simply shown is, if you are coming to attack armed law enforcement agents, you must be ready to suffer collateral damage. So it's deterrence. When you have men well armed on operation, it also shows that they are prepared for you in case you want to take them on.
Now, Femi, I'm going to tell a very small story. How many years back, we had the unfortunate story of arms cache in Kano, filled warehouses in Kano. And eventually, some Lebanese were fingered. But Nigerians say the Lebanese are so well networked and so well connected that they know how to exit from trouble when they arise like that. The story also is that the Lebanese, I'm sorry to mention a country, don't do apology, that by the nature of their own country and their history, they have this network of arms dealing, money dealing, and drug dealing. You mentioned Brazil as a source. As networkers and couriers and dealers, are you seeing the fingers of Nepalese in Nigeria's challenge?
Well, without necessarily trying to portray any country in bad light or stigmatizing any country, I'll just refer to a recent case that has to do with that was, I think, September 2021, with the seizure of almost 500,000 pills of Captagon. Captagon is a brand of amphetamine that which is also called in the Middle East jihadist drugs. And we had a seizure of that at the Apapa port in Lagos. That seizure was spectacular in the sense that those drugs were actually brought into the country in machines. Those machines were specifically built for the purpose of concealing those drugs. Imagine they would have spent millions to build those machines, to import them. And but then I think to them the value of the drugs whatever expensive in the machines. And we had intelligence shared by our foreign partners, and we indeed followed up and monitored that particular shipment, even when it was transloaded in North Africa. We also had information that it has changed ship, and so we followed everything up to the point it got to our own waterways here, and we waited for the ship to berth. And when it came, it showed there was obviously no drug in quote, because they were all simple machines, well knitted, well packed and everything. But then the jinx was eventually broken by our sniffer drugs when the chairman asked that the sniffer drugs be deployed, the machines be brought out and the sniffer drugs be deployed to examine and eventually the sniffer dogs kept pointing to the rotors of those machines, and they had to be broken into pieces with welding machines, and eventually, lo and behold, we have almost 500,000 purus concealed in those things. I mean, we are talking of drugs worth then I think over $5 million brought into the country, and ultimately those drugs were meant for our insurgents and bandits. But then through the vigilant eagle eyes of our men and with the help of intelligence and sniffer drugs, were able to prevent that from coming into circulation in Nigeria. Because just imagine because that particular drug is a kind of drug that can make an individual go on for 3-4 days, not sleeping, not tired, not getting tired, not hungry. So that's why it's called the jihadist drugs, and make them ruthless and merciless. But then we're grateful to God that we're able to prevent that from coming into circulation in Nigeria. Just imagine what that would have done with the kind of security challenges the nation is facing. So it would have obviously compounded our issues in Nigeria. Now that taken out of circulation, we working also to trace. And I'll also tell you that as recent as last week, even though that happened in September last year, but beyond the initial suspects we had in custody, we were also following up to make sure that we track up to the last person involved in that particular shipment. I'll tell you that fortunately last week we were able to arrest a key suspect who had been on the run, and because we had closed in on him, he had to surrender himself. So that's that.
Now the big one, Femi. Okay. Suddenly there's a drug in town, essentially in the southeast. It is said to be called Mpurumini. And if you translate that is seeds of water. And it's wrecking destruction among the youth. Is NDLEA following up on that?
Absolutely.
Just wait, and I'm going to say something near scandalous.
Okay, please.
Something near scandalous.
Please go ahead.
The very bad speculation is that Mpurumini is state-sponsored.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's an iota of truth in that.
Can you see what I said? I said
something
yeah. So your face, it didn't look kindly to it.
No,
the shock of it.
I just find that
sponsored as a means of destroying troublesome.
No, I don't think that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I don't think there's any outer of truth in that.
Have you got to the root of the source?
Yeah, we definitely. I can tell you that almost immediately, the chairman chief executive set up a task force to get to the root of it, and that task force has been working. And one thing, let me tell you something. One thing the chairman himself has given to the people of the Southeast is the fact that the communities have shown resilience, have shown the spirit of the war against drug abuse in Nigeria. That is taking ownership of the war against drug abuse. They have really shown that. How? By rising up on their own to say, no, we cannot allow this to thrive in our communities. We are not allowing you to produce this, to circulate this, or even to consume this. Even though we may not be in support of the violence visited on some of the young men, as we have seen in some videos, but then we appreciate the spirit. And I'm sure a number of times the chairman had commended the people of the Southeast, and in the same way he has said that this is exactly how we want every community in Nigeria to rise up and defend their communities against these merchants of death. Now, coming to the question, Mkpurumiri, that is methamphetamine. Mkpurumiri is just a local language, yes, in the Southeast for it. It's also called ice or crystal meth. Now, it's something that had been that had been in circulation since the Second World War. All those kind, they were actually drugs issued for military operations then, until it got banned globally. And what happened in the case of Nigeria recently is that you have some of these things that had ever been produced before, or that had entered through some places, through some means, but they could not find market. They could not take them out of Nigeria, because some of these things are usually taken to South Africa or to some European companies. So they are broken into pieces, into smaller, into grams, 1 kg, 2 kg. You would have seen, various attempts being made to send them through our airports. We block them. Through even the courier companies, we block them. Now, because these things cannot find their way, so the only thing that is to distribute population, so distribute it within the area where the business, and that was exactly what you see happen. But then we really appreciate the agency, NDLEA as an agency, appreciate what the people of the Southeast, the communities in the Southeast have done, their response to that, by rising up to resist that. And that's exactly what we are preaching with the war against drug abuse that was launched on June 26th by President Buhari himself in Abuja here. That is the spirit behind it. For everybody, we cannot afford to say, oh, don't also forget that is not just in the Southeast alone. It's just because it was so obvious there. It's something in every community, because the merchants of that, if they cannot find a market for it, they cannot take it out of the country again, then they'll try to see how if they can find local markets for it. And that was exactly why you saw that explosion then. But then, as things are at the moment, because of the cooperation we got from the local communities, you would have seen that has almost fizzled out now. So that is exactly the spirit behind WADA. Let the people rise up, take ownership of it. But again, I come to your question. There is nothing like a deliberate, deliberate attempt by the authorities to use it as as a warfare. Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think there is any truth in that, because the people themselves know, they know those behind it, and that's why they're able to fish them out. They are not government agents. They are individuals within those communities. And that's why we tried as much as possible to educate the people, to let them know, look, if you within your community, if you see people, if you see some of the, I mean, if you see some areas, some houses that are locked in the daytime, not operating, you don't see movements there, you don't see anything happening there, and suddenly in the night you see the lights on, people busy, then that's a red flag for you. Then beyond that, again, when you see supplies coming in and people coming to buy, I mean, take consignments out of that place, that is also a red flag. Something is happening here. Then when you also see waste disposal trucks coming in to take plastics, chemical waste, all these kind of things, those are pointers. Something could be going on. Then when you also look at your environment, you see the smell, the freshness of the air is being polluted by some
something
something you don't understand. That's also a red flag. That's also a pointer to something fishing. Beyond that, again, when you see the vegetation, the greens in your area, plantations changing colors from green to yellow or something like that, also shows you that something is happening, unhealthy is happening within your community. Again, when you have your waters, your wells from your borehole changing color or even giving a different taste, that's also a pointer to something happening. And that's why we encourage people, when you notice all of this, please contact the nearest command of the NDLEA so that we can move in, check the environment, conduct forensic tests, and make sure that if we discover clandestine laboratory being operated there, we'll take them out.
Can I ask you a question?
Please feel free.
Where is Abakari?
Well, Abakari, as we speak, as at the time we're having this interview, is in our custody along with others. And I'll also tell you that charges have been filed against them in the court. The matter had been assigned to a judge, and we're only waiting for the court to call us for arraignment.
As of this morning, we're having this conversation. The Ministry of Justice has obtained a court order, a court approval, allowing Abakari to be extradited to the United States for a different offense. Is it a matter of postponing the evil day for him, or is he off the hook now that he's going to be tried for another offense in the U.S.?
Well, you know, I can only speak for the NDLEA.
Yes.
I can't speak for the Federal Minister.
Yes, I asked that
that's
question
why
in respect of your own case.
Yes, that I've just answered you as as it relates to us, that one, he's in our custody along with other suspects, along with 6 others. 2, that we had filed charges against him in the court. The case had been assigned to a judge, and we are only waiting for the court to invite us for the arraignment. That is the much that I know about our own case against him. So
that's not your business. I'm going to let you off on that.
Okay.
But I'm not going to let you off on the Abakari incident as a metaphor. Are you worried, NDLEA, are you worried that this drug matter and the barons and the network could infiltrate our security institutions? If you are worried, what consequences make you afraid?
Well, I wouldn't say we're worried, because we're doing everything possible to fish out anybody who is compromising their position in any organization as far as drug is concerned. I mean, this one is a strong statement to anybody in any law enforcement organization or agency that if you compromise as far as the Nigeria's drug war is concerned, if you try to come against the law, if you try to break the law, then you will face the music. I think that there can be I think it's a very strong message of the decade. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? It's a very strong message to anybody. And that's why wherever they are, whether on the road, anywhere we arrest them, we detain them, we conclude their investigation, we file charges against them. They pay for it individually without necessarily dragging the name of the organizations into it, because they are individual actions and they have to pay for it individually.
Well, I'm not going to make you an augurer who can see tomorrow, who will see which grain will grow and which grain will not grow. But I won't be wrong to ask you, what hope is there for Nigeria in how many years to say this country will be near drug-free?
Absolutely, what we're doing, the battle, the war, is a winnable one. If it's not a winnable one, I'm sure we would not be where we are today, because like I told you at the beginning, I said in 2021 alone, what we have done with over 12,000 arrests, about 1,400 offenders serving jail terms, 1,502 others facing charges, with over 3.4 million kilograms of assorted illicit drugs taken out of circulation. For us, a gram seized is a gram what is available out there. This has, in no small measure, as our latest findings have shown, affected availability of these drugs and also impacted on the prices of these drugs in the market. Now, a bottle of codeine that used to be everywhere, sold for 200 naira, 500 naira, it's now probably the cheapest you can get it anywhere now is it goes between, depending on the area now, it goes between 1,500 and 7,000 naira a bottle, small bottle of codeine. That shows you that the availability has been cut down and access to it is restricted. Then again, when you talk of cannabis, with last year alone, 2.9 kilograms of that taken out of circulation. That is huge. I've just told you of our operations in a particular state in the southwest, where we went into 5 forests that cut across 5 local government area of the state and destroyed 255 hectares. So just imagine if that had been harvested and put into circulation. So what it means is, with all that we're doing at the moment, we're definitely approaching the end of this thing, and then with the support, which is very key, now we have the support of the federal government led by President Muhammadu Buhari. We have the support of the National Assembly. We have the support of the ministry supervising the agency, that is Justice. We have the support of a lot of stakeholders. So we need the support of the communities, everybody, just like we cited the case of the Southeast. We need that kind of mobilization and support, that level of consciousness, so that together we can win this war in no time.
Well, I'm about to conclude this conversation, but I'm afraid about what is happening in our institutions, in our universities, in our secondary schools. When these drug barons cannot get these things across the formal trade channels, they look for softer spots. Are you looking in that direction?
Absolutely. It's like you are working in the agency, you know, because your questions are almost, your questions are prophetic, like seeing what we're doing here. I'll tell you that as recent as about 2-3 weeks ago, we did launch, the chairman himself was physically present at the University of Abuja, where we launched drug-free campus campaign in collaboration with the management and the authorities of the school. All of these are targeted towards making sure that our campuses are drug-free. And that is just the beginning. We're taking that around the country to make sure, because today, predominantly, most of those that are on these substances are our youths. And where do you find them? Usually within the tertiary institutions, and we're taking the campaign not just to tertiary institutions, but even to secondary and primary school through our various stakeholders, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, as well as faith-based organizations, community-based organizations. We are deploying, working with a lot of stakeholders to take the messages to all of these areas. And that's one key thing we are also deploying, and that is the drug integrity test. With the drug test, because now we're encouraging the universities to adopt that as an institutional policy where any fresh student coming in will have to undergo drug test. Any returning student will have to undergo drug test. What this does is deterrence, strong deterrence, because when you know that when you are going into a university, you'll be asked to do drug test, you wouldn't want to go near drugs, because you know that when you test positive, that may affect your academic year in the school, and you wouldn't, for the fear that you are not following your mates, your colleagues to classes alone, it deters you. You wouldn't want to go through that. So that is really going around, and a number of universities have adopted this and is working. And so we're doing all of that, and beyond that, we're also setting up WADA clubs across the institutions, not only in the universities. We're setting them up across all the tertiary institutions up to our secondary schools. And also beyond that, we're also making sure that the drug education is also, even though it's already in the curriculum, but then we're encouraging schools, because it's not as a standalone subject. It's not taught as a standalone subject. It's embedded in other subjects like civic education, social studies, and what have you. So we're encouraging schools to bring these things out and let our children, right from the primary school, understand the dangers inherent in this, drug abuse, so that they can be well aware of what the impact this can have on their life, on their health, as well as on their career in life.
Well, the past 40 minutes or thereabout, I have been conversing with Femi Babafemi. Femi Babafemi is the Director, Media and Advocacy of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. I came with a fear, I must confess that, as a grandfather, I'm afraid that one of my grandchildren could sidestep. Why not we begin to address the question before it creates a major problem? And I think Femi has helped us quite a lot, as I have profited. I hope you also have profited. Femi, thank you for coming to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
My name remains Mwabos Njoku. This conversation never ends. It continues next Sunday. For today, good afternoon.